Well, as the PNP continues to face heat over the issue, political commentator and analyst, the mandate governor from Western Jamaica, Lloyd B. Smith, weighed in on the matter, telling Nationwide that he believes that the PNP President Mark Golding's handling of the issue has been ineffective. According to Lloyd B. Smith, the PNP president and opposition leader was not proactive when confronted with the crisis.
Well, I think the perhaps greatest fault of the opposition leader is his seeming inability to be more proactive. I think especially in this current climate of social media and the way in which information can be used for and against you, it would have behooved him to, move swiftly. The moment a crisis develops in his party with any one of his colleagues that may well bring the party into disrepute, then he should act swiftly and take decisive action rather than to allow the thing to just stay there and become a sort of political football.
Yes, Lloyd B. is correct. Yes, I think that opinion is very reasonable and based on, it's a logical opinion to draw. According to Smith, Golding's belated action was perhaps dictated by public opinion.
So even now that he has made a decision to remove the MP from certain pivotal posts, it has been done belatedly, and so the effectiveness of those decisions has been dissipated. So I think he needs to realize that swift action is always the best way to go, and he must be on top of his game and not allow for public opinion to dictate in the final analysis what he does or does not do.
Lloyd B. Smith, yes. And, Lloyd is onto something here because Mr. Golding would have known since the publication back in February of the Auditor General's report into this matter that one of his own was implicated on the wrong side of the issue. And he allowed the thing to just wobble along, hoping that it would go away. And then it blew up when it was confirmed that indeed Dennis Gordon's Jacden was one of the 4 companies cited by the Auditor General. And he waffled on it. Yes, Mr. Golding waffled on it and seemingly only reacted and took action when public pressure reached a boiling point. Yeah. And even then, he was still trying to walk between the raindrops. The burden of leadership, not only political leadership, but leadership generally, imposes on those who find themselves in leadership positions certain burdens. Yeah. And the mettle of leadership and leaders is not when times are good, but when times are bad and rough. That's when you have to prove your mettle as a leader. And this one should not have been so rough and tough for Mr. Golding, because the issues are pretty clear, very, very clear. Yeah. He would have, if he had been decisive enough, looking very, very good, if he had acted quickly in saying to Mr. Gordon, I am going to remove you from the Public Accounts Committee of the Parliament. Yes. And I'm going to ask you to step aside as chairman of the PNP Region 3. Yes. For the good of public accountability that we, as in he, Mr. Golden, has been emphasizing. It has been a central plank of the PNP's campaign leading up to the general elections last year. Yeah, holding people accountable in public life. And Mr. Golding lost a golden opportunity. Yes, Golding lost a golden opportunity to prove his mettle on this. And that is what Lloyd B. Smith and others are saying. Yeah, And unfortunately for Mark Golding, again, a critical test, a critical moment, he did not rise to the occasion. Jermaine Barrett, also speaking with Nationwide, a political commentator, is describing the PNP's initial silence on the issue as detrimental.
But ultimately, it was not timely enough insofar as when the controversy broke in January, there was not any action. There was silence on the part of the People's National Party, and that was detrimental because it created an opportunity for public sentiment to sort of arise and ultimately a rebuke of the opposition leader for his untimely and management of the issue. So I don't think it would have been detrimental for the opposition leader simply to ask Dennis Gordon to step aside until there is clarity on the matter and ultimately return when it is that there has been sufficient vindication of him.
All right, that's Jermaine Barrett. Time for the break. The war, the Middle East war. This morning, in fact, half an hour ago, at 10 o'clock, the United States says it will begin enforcing a naval blockade of the critical waterway known as the Strait of Hormuz. And that strait, if you're a geography student, or history student, econ student, if you didn't hear the name Hormuz before the last 2-3 weeks, you better go and learn it, because I'm sure those who write exams, yes, are going to be putting a question on paper about the Strait of Hormuz. What is a strait? Why is Hormuz so important? What role does it play in global trading relationships and transportation? Yeah? Go study and read up, yeah, about the Strait of Hormuz. Simply put, 20% of the world's global oil supply has to travel, be transported through the Strait of Hormuz. It's a very narrow strait. Yeah? It's at its narrowest point, 12 miles. And it's under the influence and considered part of the sovereign territory of Iran. And Iran, which is now in a war with the United States and Israel, launched on the 28th of February, cannot fight the US and Israel militarily, shot for shot, pound for pound, missile for missile. Iran is no match for the United States and Israel. That is why the United States and Israel, President Trump, boasts that they have complete air superiority over Iran. They can fly over Iran and strike Iran at will. Thousands of bombs have been dropped on Iran since the 28th of February. And what the Iranians are doing is fighting what you call an asymmetrical war. Asymmetrical. They're not hitting back with airstrikes. Yeah? What they're doing is weaponizing their gift from geography. Yes, because it's a matter of geography where the Strait of Hormuz is concerned and is in the control of the Iranians. So they have said to America, listen, President Trump, you have the power, the military might, but we have geography on our hands. When we effectively shut down the Strait of Hormuz, oil prices, fertilizer prices, surge. The global economy, is thrown off balance, and it is very costly. We can absorb the pain that you have been inflicting on us. What about you, Trump, the American people, and the citizens of India and surrounding area, China, who depend on the oil coming through the Strait of Hormuz to get their economies going, to keep their economies going? That is where we are at, where the Iranians have been saying, listen, we're digging in. We're not going to allow any ship, unless with our approval, and they have to pay us toll to use the Strait of Hormuz. Well, Mr. Trump, if there's one thing about Trump, he listens to the markets, to the world market. And he knows what's happening in America. Gas prices, more than $4 a gallon. Inflation going up. Inflation is moving at a pace which is the fastest in over 2 years after he came to power, on the back that prices, affordability under Biden was totally out of control, and promised Americans that he was going to fix prices and the economy. Well, based on his decision to go to war with Iran on the 28th of February, prices, inflation, gas prices, all over the place. And here we are this morning, after the failure of talks in the Pakistani capital of Islamabad on the weekend. Mr. Trump has moved to play a big card that he's now, as of 10 o'clock this morning, as of 40 minutes ago, says no ship. They have formally notified seafarers, the shipping companies, that listen, you can't pass through the Strait of Hormuz without our permission. And they have the naval power to do so. The question is going to be, how will the Iranians respond when they start to impose and enforce the naval blockade of ships trying to go through the Strait of Hormuz? How will Iran respond? Oil prices went up this morning by 7% when news came through that he was going to be imposing the naval blockade. So the next 24, 48 hours are going to be crucial. And of course, Mr. Trump